Welcome everyone to this week's video. Today we are on Fish Friday number 218. As you can once again tell, I am not in my home office. I was meaning to have this video recorded, and I did record a video, but I thought it would be really neat instead to do a hotel video because I thought it would be really interesting for me to do a video on the state fish of where I went for work. So I wound up going to Arizona. Some really crazy stuff happened. I wound up having to go to Arizona for work. And Arizona has a neat history that we've talked about in the past, especially regarding fish. So today's fish that we're going to be talking about is the Apache trout. Now the Apache trout, what does this button do? Not sure. Now the Apache trout, or scientific name, is Oncorhynchus apache. Again, that's Oncorhynchus apache. It is part of the family Salmonidae, which is the family of salmon and trout. And you know, we just recently talked about trout, but I've mentioned this stories about this fish. Although you might not have known about this fish, I've mentioned stories about this fish numerous times on the stream and in my videos about how there was a fish that was critically endangered that was essentially saved by local protection laws. And this is actually that trout. Now, the Apache trout is one of only 2 trout or salmon species native to Arizona, and this is obviously the state fish of Arizona. And it's really only found in, well, it's been transplanted numerous places, but they really prefer streams up in higher elevations, especially going through like conifer forests and mountains at really high elevations. I believe I said that already. So that's the habitat they're going to prefer. They have been transplanted to lakes and things like that. And you know, you would think that a fish that can be transplanted so easily would not have been endangered. However, it still happened. And you know, this is a fish that usually likes really clear, pristine waters to get by. How they handle when they start going into lakes, I'm not entirely sure. So I do know hybridization is a huge issue for them, and probably hybridization and being outcompeted with by like rainbow trout, which, as we talked about before, rainbow trout is one of the most prolific fish and can be extremely bad in terms of devastating natural populations. Now, the Apache trout is kind of a smaller trout. It's definitely not one of the larger ones. It does have a beautiful pattern. It can get decent size. So as you can see here, it is actually heavily sought after by photographers, but obviously there's a reason for that. It's rarity and things like that. But it has this sort of golden body with many dark spots, can be kind of sparsely spotted, heavily spotted on the caudal fin, and although you can't see it, heavily spotted on the dorsal fin. However, one of the better characteristics for finding out it's an Apache is actually these 2 dots right here that give it the, oops, you couldn't see, 2 dots here that give it the appearance of a band going. That seems to be that's one of the better characteristics I've used. Really should have kept on with this. It's in terms of size, they're really about 13 centimeters. That's your sort of average-ish, getting up to, which is about 5.1 inches. So they have this really golden beautiful body shape. It can be a little yellow olive color. If you remember the brook trout, we talked about the parring on the sides, and these do kind of get it. Then, of course, like many of the others, trout and salmon, they have the wider tips on the pelvic and anal fins. So, kind of your general sort of trout shape. But what's actually interesting is they do have a cutthroat mark. So we've talked about the cutthroat trout, and the cutthroat trout has one of the most subspecies of any trout species out there, barring probably the rainbow trout. But what's interesting is the cutthroat marking is usually a little yellow, not usually yellow. If you look at this picture again, you might have missed it, but this right here is actually the cutthroat marking. And I'll show an actual cutthroat trout if you are not sure what that looks like. There you go. So this is a cutthroat trout. You can see right here, it's got this red mark. Now, that inbreeding season gets much bigger, and that's why that yellow mark was so much larger. But the Apache trouts is actually yellow, which is always, really neat. Coloration is always very fascinating topic. Now it can get larger than that 13 centimeters and significantly larger. I don't know the length on it, but the maximum weight that I could find was 5 pounds 4 ounces, which is, I believe, like almost exactly 10 kilograms, I believe. Hold on, I'm really bad at pounds to kilograms. So it'd be almost 2.75 kilograms. Sorry, actually, I had to look that up. I know, some bad scientists. In terms of reproduction, they're actually very similar to the brook trout. They're finding reds and things like that. And remember, reds are these cleaned out gravel deposits where groundwater is seeping into the river. That's where they really prefer. I believe even in their lake ecosystems, they would travel upstreams trying to find those reds to spawn. So really unique, really neat fish. But for the interesting fact we're going to end the video on is a little more in depth and talking about what happened, what saved this fish. So this was the state fish of Arizona, and it has been for a long time. And this fish started declining due to overpopulation, pollution of the waterways because there was a lot of timber harvesting and things like that. And an Apache tribe decided we needed to save this fish. And they took the first steps, and they did it in the late 1950s, mid 1950s. And they closed fishing to reservation waters and then actively started trying to reduce timber harvesting, grazing, and they were constructing barriers, keeping the fish, protecting them, heavily researching them, keeping trout, invasive trout out, like the rainbow trout, lake trout, and things like that. And it was originally listed under the Federal Species Endangered Act in 1966 and became federally protected as well with the Endangered Species Act of 1973. Basically it's been on the radar for a long time. But thanks to the efforts of the Apache tribe, it was downgraded to threatened in 1975. But they didn't stop there. The Apache tribe still continued to protect the fish and continue doing conservation work, but they did sort of add fishing. So they allowed people to come fishing for the fish, which is always a good thing because remember, fishermen are usually who fund conservation efforts and help these populations go out there, and they definitely bring forth the media attention and things like that. You know, especially if someone manages to catch a rare Apache trout, you know, one of the few left, and they are seen to be handling it with care, it can really generate a lot of good things for them. But because of how the Apache trout continued, it actually got delisted in September of 2024, meaning this month. Another reason why I wanted to do this. It was removed from the federal list of federally endangered species list, which means that this month, this is a very historic event actually. This marks the first sport fish and the first trout delisted due to recovery. It is such a huge historic moment because a sport fish and a trout, both of which are notorious for being very, very difficult to replenish their populations, has now been delisted. In a large part, it is due to the 70-year effort of the Apache tribe saying, we don't care, we're going to save this fish. Mind blowing, awesome. But thank you guys so much again. I really appreciate it. Hope to see you again. If you'd like to support the channel, please click the link down below. It is by no means expected, but very much appreciated. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Sorry I'm not in my normal facility, and sorry about my voice. I have a little cough. Traveling always gets me. But thank you guys so much again. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your loved ones. And peace.